Good evening. I'd like to call to order a meeting of the Committee Adjustment for the Town of Grimsby for March 18th, 2025. The committee members in attendance this evening are Kevin Antonitis, Daniel Collins, Fabia Billing online, and Dylan couldn't make it, and myself, Adam Ottershead. Staff members present this evening are Walter Basic, Deputy Director of Planning, and Dilhara Abiwarden, Secretary Treasurer. Live streaming. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are live streamed by the Town of Grimsby. Individuals and media may be audibly or visually recorded during this meeting. As a reminder, all electronic devices are in silent mode during our committee meeting. The purpose of the application and relative correspondence will be heard, following which the applicant will be given the opportunity to address the application. Any person concerned with the application will then be given an opportunity to speak. At the conclusion of the discussion, the committee will render a decision and advise of any applicable conditions. Copies of decisions will be mailed to the applicant or agent and to any other person who files a written request to request a copy of the decision. Please email Dilhara Abiwarden, Secretary Treasurer at coa@grimsby.ca. The applicant, the Town of Grimsby, the minister, or a specified person or public body has a right to appeal either the decision itself or the conditions of consent to the Ontario Land Tribunal within 20 days of the date of giving notice under subsection 17 is completed for a consent application, and within 20 days of the date of decision for minor variance application. Specified persons and certain public bodies include public utilities, but do not include an individual or community association. Everyone present will be given an opportunity to speak and given an opportunity to comment on the applications being heard. Please address your comments and questions to the chair. Each participant will be provided 5 minutes to speak. Each participant may only speak once. If you hear your comment presented by someone else, please do not duplicate the remarks. When you are called, we ask you to state your name and address for the record. Agencies commenting on applications may request that certain conditions be imposed. Voicing objections to these conditions will not adversely affect the committee's decision. All members of the committee have viewed the properties on the agenda tonight and are familiar with the lands that are subject to the applications. Is there any members of the committee who have pecuniary interest with respect to the matters before us this evening?
Dylan has made it online now.
Oh, okay. Dylan, you're acknowledged. Thank you. Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the adoption of the agenda. Do I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda as published? Second. Moved by Kevin, seconded by Dan. Resolve the agenda for the March 18, 2025 Committee Adjustment meeting be approved. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye, raise your hand. That's carried. And there's, I believe, one request for deferral?
Defer.
Okay. So we have 9 Doran Avenue. What's the deferral request? When they want to defer it to?
No date, just a meeting in the future. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so would the committee like to move a deferral motion on this application? It's to a future. It's no future date.
So that time we deferred it to this meeting.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, so that's why, yeah.
Yeah.
So now it's just going to be indefinite.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll make that motion to defer it indefinitely.
Okay, moved by Kevin. And a seconder on that?
Yep.
I got Fabia. Okay, resolve that minor application A0125 for Doran Avenue be deferred until a future date. All those in favor say aye, raise your hand. Opposed, if any? That's carried. Has the committee had the opportunity to review the minutes of our meeting of February 18th, 2025? If so, do I have a mover and seconder to approve those minutes? Dylan. Dan. So moved by Dylan, seconded by Dan. Resolved that the minutes of the meeting held on February 18th, 2025. Any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye, raise your hand. Opposed, if any? Okay, so we have 5 applications before us tonight, and the first is A0725 for 4 Adelaide Street. Dilhara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me bring up my presentation. Okay, so this, sorry. The purpose of this application is to flip the stairs from the front to the back of the existing landing in the side yard in order to gain some security and privacy. The variance requested is to permit unenclosed stairs in the interior side yard, whereas it is only permitted in the front, exterior side yard or rear yard. This is an image of the site plan, which was circulated along with the notice of hearing. This is an image of the neighborhood for context. These are the current conditions on site. And these are the agencies that have provided comments, and I will summarize those comments for you now. Planning staff have no objections to the minor variance proposed by the applicant. They have reviewed the application under Section 45 of the Planning Act and are of the opinion that the minor variance meets the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, is appropriate for the development of the lands, and is minor in nature. Heritage planning staff have the following to say. The requested minor variance does not result in any adverse impacts to the cultural heritage value of the subject and adjacent heritage properties at 2, 4, and 6 Adelaide Street. Heritage staff find that the proposed new staircase location will reveal more of the existing original facade of the building at 4 Adelaide Street. By allowing the heritage resource to change and adapt to modern needs, we encourage the long-term retention of the multi-unit building. Heritage planning staff defer to the planning memorandum on the recommendation for approval. Public works staff have no conditions or comments. NPCA staff have the following comments. There are no features regulated by the NPCA which traverse the subject site. As such, the NPCA offers no objections to the proposed development at this address. And finally, the region has no comments. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Is the owner or the agent for this application present or online? Do we have some? I thought we had someone. Just give us 1 second. Okay. Yeah, 'cause I thought I had someone lost. Yeah, I think so. Okay. That being said, we'll just see if there's the agent is coming back online. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to this? Seeing none? Okay. Any questions or comments from the committee?
Mr. Chair.
Yep, go ahead,
Sorry.
Dylan.
I just had a question regarding, I was looking at the resolution, but then I was looking at the planning report. And under the variance requested table 1, it says to consider rewording to include deck landing. I'm assuming that this is something that staff would like us to add to the resolution. It says in the to permit a projection of 1.2 meters for unenclosed stairs and a deck into the required interior side yard. So I'm just curious if that should be added to the resolution for this file.
Yeah, I do recall reading that in the planning report. If planning wants to just speak to the wording.
Yes, I would agree with that suggestion.
Okay, so let me just pull up the wording here.
Mr. Chair, I can take a stab at that resolution if you'd like.
Sure, if you've gone ahead and done the homework, I appreciate it.
Sure. Be it resolved that minor variance application A07-25 for 4 Adelaide Street to permit unenclosed stairs in the interior side yard, where it is only permitted in the front exterior side yard or rear yard as per section 4.9C in zoning bylaw 14-45 as amended, and to permit a projection of 1.2 meters for unenclosed stairs and a deck into the required interior side yard be approved as it meets the 4 tests.
Okay, thank you. Is that planning? Is that how you would have worked? Okay, perfect. Okay, any discussion on the resolution? Need a seconder as well. Okay. With Dylan, second by Kevin. So any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye, or actually I'll just read it. Oh, you read it out. All those in favor, aye, raise your hand. Opposed, if any? It's carried. And next application is A08-25 for 69 Fairview Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the purpose of this application is to construct a single-story bungalow dwelling with an attached double garage. The variances requested are to permit a minimum interior side yard setback of 1.2 meters, whereas 1.8 meters is required. To permit a maximum lot coverage of 38.5%, whereas a maximum of 35% is required. And to permit a minimum rear yard setback of 7.7 meters, whereas a minimum rear yard setback of 8.84 meters is required. This is an image of the site plan, which was circulated along with the notice of hearing. This is an aerial image of the neighborhood for context. These are the current conditions on site. And these are the agencies that have provided comments, and I will summarize those comments for you now. Planning staff have no objections to the minor variances proposed by the applicant. They have reviewed the application in the context of the 4 tests set out under Section 45 of the Planning Act and are of the opinion that the minor variance meets the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, is appropriate for the development of the lands, and is minor in nature. Public Works staff does not have any conditions but offers the following comments. At the building permit stage, Public Works staff will require lot grading and drainage plan demonstrating that stormwater runoff will not negatively impact nor rely upon neighboring properties. The plan shall include all proposed downspout and sump pump discharge locations and directions, all hardscape surfaces such as driveways, walkways, patios, etc., and all physical features including hydrants, decks, trees, etc. for both existing and proposed conditions. The plan shall also note the location of the existing services, that is water, sanitary and storm, to property line and the extension of services to the building phase. At the building permit stage, the applicant shall apply for an entrance permit for removal of the existing driveway and to construct the proposed driveway access onto Fairview Road for review and approval by Public Works staff. The NPCA commented to say that there are no NPCA regulated features currently at the subject address. As such, they don't have any objections to the proposed development, and the region has no comments. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Is the owner or agent for this application present or online? Just going to come to the podium, give your name and address. And just have any additional comments or questions you want to add?
It's Brian Nobles. I'm at 4888 Connor Drive in Beamsville, and I don't have anything to add other than what's in the application.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any questions from the committee?
I've got one. Do we have a cross section of it? Is it going to be 1 story, 2 story, 1.5?
It's going to be a bungalow, 1 story.
1 story bungalow?
Yep.
Okay. Because that would be my only concern, really, is getting a big 2 story with that all these variances. Would you object then if we made it a condition of approval that it would be limited to a one-story, since that's what you're proposing?
None, no. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Thank you very much. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the application? Seeing none, do I have a motion on this application and the reasons therefore?
We can do that, Mr. Chair. So I make a motion that resolve that minor variance application A0825 for 69 Fairview Road to permit a minimum interior side yard setback of 1.2 meters, whereas 1.8 meters is required as per section 721 in the zoning bylaw as amended to permit a maximum lot coverage of 38.5%, whereas the maximum 35% is required as per section 7 table 11 and schedule 5-A in zoning bylaw as amended, and to permit a minimum rear yard setback of 7.7 meters, whereas a minimum rear yard setback of 8.84 meters is required as per section 7 table 11 in the zoning bylaw as amended, be approved subject to the following conditions. The structure be limited to a one-story dwelling as agreed to by the applicant, as it meets the 4 tests, being minor in nature, meets the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, and would be appropriate for the development and use of the property.
Okay, thank you very much. Need to second that. Any discussion on the motion from any committee members? Not, moved by Kevin, second by Dan. All those in favor say aye, raise your hand. Opposed, if any? That's approved. Yep. And it's subject to a 20-day appeal period before it becomes final and binding. Thank you. Our next application is A0625 for 174 Wolverton Road, Dohara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the purpose of this application is to construct a new dwelling, and the variances requested are to permit a maximum lot coverage of 14.5% for a dwelling as a principal use on an unserviced lot, whereas a maximum lot coverage of 7.5% is required, and to permit an attached garage to project 2.8 meters from the front porch, whereas no part of a garage shall project beyond the front wall of the first story of the dwelling, except where a porch is provided, in which case the garage shall not project beyond the front of the porch. This is an image of the site plan, which was circulated along with the notice of hearing. This is an aerial image of the neighborhood for context. These are the current conditions on site. This is what's proposed for the site. And these are the agencies that have provided comments, and I will summarize those comments for you now. Planning staff have reviewed the application under Section 45 of the Planning Act and are of the opinion that the minor variances meet the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, are appropriate for the development of the lands, and are minor in nature, subject to the inclusion of the following condition: that the Niagara region approves private services for the subject lands. Planning staff therefore have no objections to the minor variances proposed by the applicant, provided the condition can be met. Public Works staff have 2 comments and no conditions. The comments are: at the building permit stage, town staff will require lot grading and drainage plan, demonstrating that stormwater runoff will not negatively impact nor rely upon neighboring properties. The plan shall include all proposed downspout discharge locations, all hardscape surfaces such as driveways, walkways, patios, etc., and all physical features including hydrants, decks, etc., for both existing and proposed. The plan shall also note the location of all existing and proposed septic systems, wells, and cisterns. At the building permit stage, the applicant shall apply for an entrance permit for removal of the existing driveways and to construct the proposed driveway access onto Wolverton Road for review and approval by town staff. The region has the following comments. Regional Growth Management and Planning staff does not object to the proposed minor variance application, as the proposed development is consistent with the PPS and conforms to provincial and regional policies, subject to the following conditions: that the applicant or owner submit the completed Stage 2 archaeological assessment and subsequent studies if applicable, as well as a letter from the Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism confirming that all the submitted archaeological assessments, Stage 1, Stage 2 and others if applicable, have been entered into the Ontario Public Register of Archaeological Reports as a condition of licensing in accordance with the Ontario Heritage Act are required. If the ministry requires further archaeological work to be completed prior to acknowledging the reports must also be submitted to and acknowledged by the ministry to the satisfaction of Niagara Region prior to clearance of this condition. No demolition, grading, or other soil disturbances shall take place on the subject property prior to the issuance of a letter from MCM through Niagara Region, confirming that all archaeological resource concerns have met licensing and resource conservation requirements. Condition number 2, that the owner be informed of the following advisory clause. If deeply buried or previously undiscovered archaeological remains or resources are found during development activities on the subject lands, all activities must stop immediately. If the discovery is human remains, contact the Niagara Regional Police Service and coroner to secure the site. If the discovery is not human remains, the area must be secured to prevent site disturbance. The project proponent must then follow the steps outlined in the Niagara Region Archaeological Management Plan, Appendix C. And condition number 3, that the existing septic tank for the existing structure to be demolished is decommissioned and that a new septic system meeting Ontario Building Code requirements is applied for and installed to service the new dwelling at the building permit stage. The NPCA has the following comment. They have reviewed the proposed excavation and has found that the volume of earth removed would not be enough to create a hazardous slope at the site. As such, the NPCA offers no objections to the proposed development at this address. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Is the owner or agent for the application present or online?
Hi, myself Vishu Sood. I'm an architect of this project and representing on owner's behalf for this meeting.
Okay, just state your name and I guess firm address for the record.
My name is Vishu Sood, and the firm address is 7 Blue Spruce Street, Brampton, Ontario.
Okay, thanks. Do you have any comments or questions in regards to what's been presented so far, particularly conditions?
The grading and drainage plan have already been submitted, and I have noted all the points here, and we will submit the required archaeological assessment stage 2. As well as other septic tank drawings which meets the building code requirements.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the committee? Dylan, go ahead.
Hi, just a quick question for planning staff. I just didn't quite see it in the report, but I likely missed it. What exactly, the condition that says the Niagara region approves private services for the subject lands? What does that condition mean? Because I apologize, I don't think I read it in the region's report.
Yeah, thank you for the question. The region has the responsibility of approving the provision of private water services and private septic services for the site. A lot of municipalities, the building department does it, but in Grimsby, it's Niagara Region is still, it hasn't been delegated to the local municipality yet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, go.
Thank you, Walter. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep. Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to this application? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, just go to the podium, state your name and address.
My name is Tony Battenberg. I live at 180 Wolverton Road, next door neighbor. I have a few comments or questions. First, just a comment. These stuff you send me, I can hardly read it. I need a magnifying glass to look at it. It's ridiculous. Second comment, I have a hearing problem, so most of what you said, I did not understand it. The acoustics in here are terrible, in my opinion. Anyway, you may have covered what I want to talk about here. On the site plan, there is a proposed well. Will this well be dug?
Okay, we'll just get all your questions at once, and then we'll have the applicant address them.
What do you say? Pardon
Yeah.
me?
Well, if you can just give us all your questions at once, and I'll have
Okay.
the applicant address them.
If there's a well dug, will there be a cistern in this house? And if
Okay.
there's no cistern, where will all the runoff go from the roof? Will it head my way? Will there be proper drainage? It's one of my questions. Will they alter the gradient on the property? Will it be higher? Will it stay the same, or will it go lower? And my other comment is the location of the leaching bed and the septic tank. Pretty close to my driveway. Why?
Okay, thank you. That's all the questions. I'll just get the applicant to respond. So the delegate had questions regarding the well, a cistern, runoff, the grade, leaching bed, and the septic bed. If you could address those, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, as I mentioned, the proposed grading and drainage plan have already been submitted, and as per the proposed grading plan, there will be no outflow of water into the adjacent property. That's number one. And number two, yes, there will be a proposed well at the back of the house. And number three, this septic tank is at a considerable distance from the property line that will not interfere with the adjacent property by any means.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the audience?
I am a few years younger than him, and I could not
Okay.
hear anything that he said.
Okay.
I have no answer, I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I can.
I'm a quiet talker. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, any other further questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, does the committee,
Maybe repeat his
okay.
answer, because
yeah, sir, do you want to just repeat everything regarding the well, the cistern, and the septic bed once again?
we had difficulty hearing you. If you don't mind repeating the answer slowly for us. The people in the room couldn't hear.
Okay,
Mr.
sure,
Sit-
yeah. What I was saying is that we have already submitted the proposed grading and drainage plan. And as per the proposed grading and drainage plan, there is no outflow of water to the adjacent properties. And secondly, so the water will not encroach the property line. It will not, so the water will basically dissipate back to at the back property line, as well as it will not encroach any of the adjacent properties, right? And secondly, there will be a proposed well at the back of the house. And yes, and the septic system is at a considerable distance from the property line. It is not interfering with adjacent properties' interests. So I hope there shouldn't be any objections, because this leaching bed, septic tank itself is at a couple of meters away from the property line, and the leaching bed is also approximately over 1.5 meters.
Okay, thanks once again. Any other further questions from the comments or questions? Go ahead.
I don't know if he answered the question. Is there going to be a well on site, or will it be a cistern? That was another question that the gentleman had asked.
There will be proposed well at the back.
A well and a cistern?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the audience? Seeing none, the committee have a resolution and the reasons therefore on this application. Oh, Fabia?
Just turning on my audio, sorry. I suggest we approve this application. I feel the 4 tests have been met and the home fits the area and the streetscape. I feel the homeowner has addressed the questions that were raised by the neighbor. So I'd like to submit that we accept the minor variance. Through the chair, I have one question. There were 3 conditions and I only heard 2 of them. So I need clarification on what the 3 conditions were.
Okay, do you have a copy of the resolution sheet? Because it's on the second page.
No, I don't.
Okay, I'll just summarize them. Dill Howard did read them out. First is that Niagara Region approves private services for subject lands. Second is that the applicant owner submit the completed Stage 2 archaeological assessment. The third is the standard archaeological remains clause. Fourth is that the septic tank, the existing structure, be demolished and decommissioned and a new system be installed that meets Ontario Building Code requirements. So those are the conditions.
Okay, so there were 4 conditions?
Correct.
4. So existing septic system demolished, and there are new plans in this submission. So the new plans for the septic system to be submitted. That's in essence what you were just saying, right? Right, Adam?
Correct.
Okay. So I want to go ahead with approving this.
Okay, do you have a copy of the resolution sheet there to read out, or do you want me to read it
Yeah,
for
I
you?
do.
Okay.
No, I have it, thanks. The variance is requested to permit a maximum lot coverage. Oh, I'm sorry, file number A06-25.
Correct.
Variances requested to permit a maximum lot coverage of 14.5% for a dwelling as a principal use on an unserviced lot, whereas a maximum lot coverage of 7.5% is required as per section 6.2.1, table 7 in zoning bylaw 14-45 as amended. To permit an attached garage to project 2.8 meters from the front porch, whereas no part of a garage shall project beyond the front wall of the first story of the dwelling, except where a porch is provided, in which case the garage shall not project beyond the front of the porch, as per section 4.29 BI in zoning bylaw 14-45 as amended.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
And with the four conditions that
Okay,
we previously read out.
perfect. Do I have a seconder on this motion? Dylan? Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye, raise your hand. Opposed, if any? So the application was approved. It's subject to a 20-day appeal period before it becomes final and binding. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our next application tonight is A0325 for 7 to 9 Adelaide Street. Go ahead, Tara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the purpose of this application is to facilitate the construction of a new dwelling with a secondary suite at 9 Adelaide. The variances requested are to permit 4 parallel parking spots, whereas 5 are required, to permit an aisle of 2.8 meters for a parking space, whereas 6.75 meters is required, to permit a rear yard setback of 7.19 meters, whereas 9 meters is required, to permit an interior side yard setback of 1.22 meters, whereas 1.5 meters is required, and to permit a secondary suite within a cellar, whereas a secondary suite within a cellar is not permitted. This is an image of the site plan, which was circulated along with the notice of hearing. This is an aerial view of the neighborhood for context. These are the current conditions on site. And these are some images of what is proposed for the site. These are the agencies that have provided comments, and I will summarize those comments for you now. Planning staff have no objections to the minor variances proposed by the applicant. They have reviewed the application under Section 45 of the Planning Act and are of the opinion that the minor variances meet the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, are desirable for the appropriate development of the lands, and are minor in nature. The following conditions of approval are recommended: that the following changes be made to the application as a condition of approval: that the aisle width requirement be reduced from 2.8 meters to 2.7 meters, and that the minimum side yard variance of 1.22 meters be removed, and that the parking spaces be line painted and assigned to each dwelling unit. Heritage staff comments. In summary, the requested minor variances do not result in any adverse impacts to the cultural heritage value of the heritage dwelling at 7 Adelaide Street. Heritage staff find the proposed design and placement of the proposed dwelling to be compatible, distinguishable, and subordinate to the adjacent heritage resource and surrounding building stock. Heritage staff will work with the property owners to provide support in mitigating any potential impacts resulting from the use of heavy machinery. Heritage planning staff defer to the planning memorandum on the recommendation for approval. They have one condition. The following condition is being recommended by Heritage staff to ensure that any adverse impacts resulting from the use of heavy machinery are adequately mitigated. The condition is that in the event that strain is identified on the vibration monitoring devices installed on the dwelling addressed as 7 Adelaide Street, the property owners will work with Heritage staff to develop a strategy to reduce the continual use of heavy machinery. The strategy will establish duration limits and determine when breaks are necessary, allowing the historic masonry foundation to recover and alleviate strain. Public Works staff have no conditions and one comment. Town staff note an existing building located in the proposed house location. If this existing building is to be demolished and rebuilt, at the building permit stage, town staff will require lot grading and drainage plan, demonstrating that stormwater runoff will not negatively impact nor rely upon neighboring properties. The plan shall include all proposed downspout discharge locations, all hardscape surfaces such as driveways, walkways, patios, etc., and all physical features, including hydrants, decks, etc., for both existing and proposed. The plan shall also note the location of all existing and proposed septic systems, wells, and cisterns. Please note this comment only applies if a new dwelling is being built. In terms of the region, the only comments to note are with respect to archaeology and noise. They provided the following warning clauses to the applicant for information in case of any resources uncovered through construction works. If deeply buried or previously undiscovered archaeological remains or resources are found during development activities on the subject lands, all activities must stop immediately. If the discovery is human remains, contact the Niagara Regional Police Service and coroner to secure the site. If the discovery is not human remains, the area must be secured to prevent site disturbance. The project proponent must then follow the steps outlined in the Niagara Region Archaeological Management Plan, Appendix C. Staff note an active railway line at approximately 75 meters from the property's boundary. Staff further acknowledge there is existing intervention development between the rail line and the proposal. As such, in lieu of a noise impact study, staff note the applicant or future tenants should be advised that due to the proximity of the nearby railway, noise may at times be audible as a result of the associated typical transportation activities. Staff suggests that minimum noise mitigation measures or devices be included in the design or construction of the future dwelling. That is, double-paned windows, an exterior brick facade, central air conditioning system. The NPCA has the following comment. There are no features regulated by the NPCA which traverse the subject address. As such, the NPCA offers no objections to the proposed development at this address. CN Rail had the following comments. The following clause should be inserted in all development agreements, offers to purchase, and agreements of purchase and sale or lease of each dwelling unit within 300 meters of the railway right-of-way. Warning: Canadian National Railway Company or its assigns or successors in interest has or have a right-of-way within 300 meters from the land the subject hereof. There may be alterations to or expansions of the railway facilities on such rights-of-way in the future, including the possibility that the railway or its assigns or successors, as aforesaid, may expand its operations, which expansion may affect the living environment of the residents in the vicinity, notwithstanding the inclusion of any noise and vibration attenuating measures in the design of the development and individual dwellings. CNR will not be responsible for any complaints or claims arising from use of such facilities and or operations on, over, or under the aforesaid rights-of-way. The owner shall be required to grant CN an environmental easement for operational noise and vibration emissions registered against the subject property in favor of CN. The implementation of the following mitigation measures in the dwelling design and construction: forced air ventilation systems with central air conditioning, acoustically upgraded windows meeting the minimum requirements of the building code and providing a maximum 25 dBA indoor limit for bedrooms and 40 dBA for living rooms. And back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Is the owner or agent for this application present? They wish to speak? Just come to the podium and give your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Jeremy Brown from Niagara Planning Consultants. I'm the agent on this, and my address is 219 St. Catherine Street, Smithville. Just a quick history on this property. It was deemed heritage. The existing 7 Adelaide is heritage, and 9 was on the registry. It was removed in 2024. Process began in 2023, so it has been a long time coming. The owner of the property is unable to use the building because of structural issues. It's leaning over, and it's beyond repair at this point. And so this is what we came up with, Grimsby staff, to come to an arrangement which mitigates some of the issues of the existing, as in there is no side yard setback currently. And so now we're able to develop this agreement with the staff and are hoping for the approval.
Okay, thank you very much. Any comments on the conditions or?
No, we are good with all the conditions.
Okay, thanks. Any questions from the committee? Yeah, well, just get to we have to address the committee first. Any questions from the committee? I do have one question. What's going to happen to the existing home that you say is no longer?
So 9 Adelaide would be demolished, and this proposes being rebuilt in the footprint, essentially. We're coming off of the side yard setback, the interior side yard setback slightly, but right now it's on the property line, the existing is, and so that would be demolished, and then we move it over slightly.
Okay, thank you very much. And any questions or comments from the, yep, if you just come to the podium, give your name and address, please.
Glover, 11 Adelaide Street. I live next door to the proposed application. Now they're applying for parallel parking there. Now the parallel parking is right on my property line pretty much. How would they get out of their car there? How would you parallel park there? It's 32 feet from the original house out front to my property line. So how are they going to back in and out of there, right? Now the house he's talking about at the back, it's leaning on my property. It's pretty much on the property line. So they're going to tear that down, right? So we're going to have we have parking problems on Adelaide as it is with 1 hour parking in front of our homes here. So we're going to have so much more traffic here. And my house is right there where the parallel parking will be. So how are they going to get out of their doors? They're going to be opening onto my property, on my walkway to my backyard to get out, which is ridiculous. Right? So I'm really opposed to that. So, and my house is well over 100 years old. So like you say, with excavating and all this too. So I don't know what will happen there, right? So, yeah, I'm totally opposed to this building here.
Okay,
so,
thanks. If the applicant can come up and address the questions. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
So the questions were generally parallel parking, I guess, being the concern about how close it is to the property line, demolition concerns, and I guess street parking.
Yeah, so the parking stall sizes, the widths anyways, are meeting the requirements of the Grimsby zoning bylaw. The orientation is the only way that we would be able to fit adequate parking on the property while maintaining an aisle for vehicles to exit. Now, with that, we will be painting lines on. I'm not sure what vehicles, like the tenants, will be driving, if they'll be larger trucks or smaller vehicles, but there is adequate spot for you to get in and out of a parking spot without hitting the vehicle beside you. There should be adequate space for them to get in and out of their vehicles without crossing onto the neighboring property. As to the, there's a second question there, sorry.
There's parallel parking, demolition concerns.
Concerns, yeah. So as for the demolition concerns, as was noted by Heritage staff, there will be vibration sensors planted on 7 Adelaide's foundation. So that's the same property. So if there is any excess vibrations sensed on that one, then we have to basically decrease the amount of heavy machinery on the property. So that's already being mitigated and considered.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further questions or comments from, yep, if you want to come on up. It's your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Doreen Glover, 11 Adelaide. Can you hear me? Doreen Glover, 11 Adelaide. I just want to know with this structural, as it's leaning on our property, I do have 3 dogs and grandchildren in my backyard, so how is that going to work? Is it going to be fenced in? Who's going to be taking care of that with this all happening? And another thing, we have a rat problem with already this vacant thing, and this is disgusting. Something needs to be done. And now all this is going to be destroyed, and I'm going to have more varmints over at my house, all kinds of animals. I'm quite upset about it.
Okay. And if the applicant wants to address the questions. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Snow clearance too, just so they're so close to the parking lots to my sideway.
You have to speak to the microphone, thank you.
Okay. Before he starts, could I just have, Dahara, could you put on Google Street View of the subject? Because I think it's kind of enlightening what's happening already now in the existing condition.
So speaking to the structure itself, it will be demolished and will have to comply with the standard OBC standards. So if there's a encroachment on your property that needs to be secured in some way, there can be construction fencing installed on that line. As to the rats, I mean, if you get rid of their home, they're not going to be there much longer. So it's to your benefit that this building does come down and a new one is placed.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I would actually just add, I found when they tear down a building, usually the problem doesn't go away, it actually spreads in the neighborhood. So I don't know if there's any kind of mitigation you can do in terms of that preemptively or not.
Like fumigating or bringing in a trapper ahead of time? Would you make that a condition?
Yeah, I'm not a pest control expert, so.
I just wanted to bring you to your attention. I guess I got a question. You were concerned about them getting out of their vehicles, but is that your brown car?
Yes.
So how did you,
Right there. Yeah,
that's your car?
yeah. But if we're gonna have 4 lined up through there.
Right, but the point was, you also do the same thing by the looks of it. How did you get out of your car?
Well, that's true, we do get out onto that driveway there.
Right.
But when they park further up,
Fabia, do you have audio?
Yeah. Yeah, I just,
I do now. I lost.
yeah.
I lost some.
Unfortunately, we have people online and they can't hear you. So if you have anything to add, just feel free to come up with the microphone. Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I think we lost that entire, it wasn't just from the audience, we lost that entire discussion that Kevin had, Fabia and I.
Yes.
There was no audio at all.
Yeah, there was just bringing up unfortunately, the delegate was not on the microphone, but yeah, basically was addressing concerns about the parallel parking with his car, whether it impedes on the other property, the subject property.
All right. Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just a follow up to the rodent problem. Sorry, was the applicant amenable to bring in, I don't know the term, professional services to mitigate the problem before the structure is demolished? Because I would agree with you that sort of once demolished, the problem spreads, and while it technically is resolved from that problem, it then could be made worse in many other locations.
Yeah, it was discussed briefly. I don't know if your opinion, would you be opposed to that as a condition?
I mean, if you make it a condition, we'll comply with it.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further questions, Dylan, or?
No, I would just suggest that we add that condition if we can try to, help the other, landowners around deal with something that obviously is a concern. I think in the grand scheme of this application, it's fairly minor compared to some of the other things that have to happen. So I would be in favor of that.
Okay, do you have suggested wording for that? Actually, Dan's going to talk to it, so.
Yeah,
Okay, thanks.
thank you. I just have another question, more for planning staff. A parking space, the width here is 9 feet. Is there a minimum size that a parking lot would require for the width of a parking space?
The width of a parking space is 2.75 meters. That's the requirement, which is about 9 feet.
Okay, so they meet the requirements for minimum sizes for this.
Right. For the parking spaces. We just suggested that based on them using imperial measurements, that the aisle width requirement reduction be slightly altered by 0.1 meter to 2.7 meters from 2.8 meters. And I might also suggest the committee consider in lieu of some of the concerns of overlapping parking spaces and encroachment into neighboring yards, that maybe a condition, because we requested a condition of line painting the parking spaces and assigning them. We feel that the parking spaces, particularly the very last one, is substantial in length, so there will be plenty of maneuvering opportunity or ability. So we're not concerned there. But in terms of backing up, what I would suggest is that putting in a condition that the driveway be delineated by a curb, so that when cars are maneuvering in and out of their parking spaces, that there be a physical barrier that sort of reminds them that they've gone as far as they can.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else in the audience have any questions or comments? Thank you. Yeah, you have to come with the microphone so everyone can hear you.
Know if there's going to be a retaining wall around my property so that nails and wood don't come down with my grandchildren and my 3 dogs in the backyard. Are they going to put a big fence up? Like, what are they going to do?
Okay, thank you. Would the applicant like to address that?
As in terms of the demolition of the existing, there wouldn't be any debris left on any neighboring properties or on this subject property. So all materials, nails, everything would be removed. Standard procedures for removing of this type of building would be using heavy machinery and trucking it off-site. So there won't be anything on your property after it's been demolished. I think.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments?
So just a clarification then. So existing building on the property now, it's going to be demolished and the new structure moved into the existing property, so away from the property line at the 1.5 required. So there's no longer a minor variance required on that side yard, right? So the 1.22 they originally requested will now not be required. Is that correct?
Thank you. The reason we're suggesting the 1.2 meter side yard variance is not required is because that's the measurement to the stairwell going into the basement, so which is part of the ground. So the requirement for the zoning setback doesn't include things that are on the ground. It goes to the structure itself. So that's why the proposed building is substantially farther. So it's 2.5 meters, I believe, from the lot line, and not 1.2 meters from the lot line.
So is this going to be a duplex?
Wait till you get to the.
Yeah. Okay. You want to go ahead, Kevin? Or okay.
Go ahead.
Sir.
Is it going to be 2 apartments there? Is it going to be 2 apartments, a basement apartment and an upper apartment? So we got 2 in the main house and then 2 more in the back. So that's going to be 4 rentals there then, eh? Yeah. Okay. So what about, so we were talking about when they tear it down about dust and debris. So they're going to look after that if this goes through? Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2 apartments.
Yeah, if the applicant wants to, or agent wants to clarify.
Through the chair, it is 2 units that are being proposed.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And yeah, I just want to go ahead, Dan.
Oh, thank you, through the chair. In your summary, you mentioned, I thought I heard something about a brick facade. It's not in the conditions, but I believe that would have come from CN. Was that just a suggestion, not a requirement? Or did I hear that wrong?
Give me a minute, I'll just look into it.
Sorry to make you read it twice.
It's okay. Okay, so that's a comment from the region, and they're just noting, that this is 75 meters away from an active railway line. And the staff suggests that minimum noise mitigation measures or devices be included in the design or construction of the future dwelling. And they're giving some examples to say double pane windows, an exterior brick facade, central air conditioning system.
Yeah, that's a good point. Single pane windows are hard to come by these days. Okay, yeah, I see on here forced air and upgraded windows are a requirement, and then the brick is just a suggestion. I'm okay with that. Thank you.
Okay, any further question or comments from the committee? Seeing none, is there a motion on this application and the reasons therefore?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I do have another question. I apologize.
Yep. Go ahead, Dylan.
So, sorry, just looking at the sort of Google Maps, just so I'm clear. So given where the new structure is going to be built, and then there's going to be these 4 parallel parking spaces, is the driveway for 7 to the, where am I here? To the east? Or is it, I guess what I just want to, like, where is the parking for 7 going to be? We're just unclear based on looking at.
Yeah, we'll just get the agent to clarify. Thanks.
Because the stairs look like they go into the same spot, so I just.
Through the chair, it is the same area. So this is actually a fairly odd property. They have the 2 dwellings and the 2 civic addresses, 7 and 9, but it is one parcel, and there's no future idea for severing it. There's no possibility of doing that. So it is one parcel. So 7 and 9 will share the driveway space. That's why we are proposing 4 parking stalls. So there'd be 2 units in 7, which are existing now, and then we will be proposing the 2 more in the 9 Adelaide. So each unit gets a parking stall.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. I didn't quite understand that. I thought that there may be need for more parking for 7, but thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the committee further? Seeing none, is there a motion on this application, the reasons therefore?
Adam, I had a question, sorry.
Yep, go ahead, Fabia.
This question through the chair is just a general question about the building in the back. So the building in the back that I'm looking at, it is being demolished, and the new building is not being built on the same site. It's being moved over behind the original building. I'm not understanding that point.
Yep, the agent will just clarify for you. Thank you.
Through the chair, yes, we are building essentially the exact same footprint building, so we're rebuilding it, but because there's 0 setback, we need to provide some setback, so it is shifting locations. It's essentially the same footprint as what's existing there, only now we will have an adequate setback from the interior side lot line.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions from the committee? Seeing none, I think you can take a seat now. Okay, do we have a motion on this application, the reasons therefore?
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll find it resolved that minor variance application A0325 for 7 to 9 Adelaide Street to permit 4 parallel parking spots, whereas 5 are required as per section 5, table 3 in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended, to permit an aisle of 2.8 meters for a parking space, whereas 6.75 meters is required as per section 5, table 4 in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended, to permit a rear yard setback of 7.19 meters, whereas 9 meters is required as per section 7, table 11 in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended, to permit an interior side yard setback of 1.22, whereas 1.5 meters is required as per section 7, table 11 in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended, to permit a secondary suite in a cellar, whereas a secondary suite in a cellar is not permitted as per section 419D in zoning bylaw 1445 be approved with conditions. Would you like me to read out the conditions, Mr. Chair? No? No, sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I got a no from over here. Okay, but I would like to add a condition. If it is okay with the committee, I'll let you guys decide, that the driveway be delineated by a curb, as per the suggestion from planning. So that is would be condition number 7. And I make my motion because it, as outlined by the planning department, meets the 4 tests, that it meets the intent of the official plan, the zoning bylaw, it's desirable, and it is minor in nature.
Okay, thanks. Do you have a seconder on that? Sorry, Fabia, you're going to second? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, go.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, could I ask for a friendly amendment with the addition of the condition to address the rodent problem before the structure is
Yep, go
torn
ahead.
down?
Yep. Do you have wording, or do you want me to suggest? I
mean, I'm not sure, to mitigate, before the existing structure is demolished, that professional pest management company be retained in order to mitigate and address current rodent issues.
Yeah,
If you have something better,
yeah.
I'm happy to go with that.
I think it's the same. Professional pest control services be engaged to assess and mitigate any pest issues prior to demolition.
You're better than mine. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank
Sorry,
you.
and one other thing, Dan, the one part of the motion you changed from 2.7 to 2.8, but the second to last amendment I think needs to come out because that was a condition. So I don't think we need that in the motion.
What number would that be?
Sorry, the section, the permitted interior side yard setback of 1.22 meters, whereas 1.5 is required. That was removed as per condition 1.2. I just think for consistency, if we're going to change it from 2.7 to 2.8, we should then delete that from the motion, or we should keep it original for both and then go with the condition.
I think for ease, we'll just leave it in there and just address it as a condition.
Okay.
I don't know if the committee
All right.
feels the same way.
That's fine. Just as long as it's one or the other.
Okay, does the mover and seconder accept the additional condition?
Yeah, I want to talk more about, maybe just ask Walter for a minute. If we bring in a condition for pest removal, would that be, you'd be able to uphold that, like from a bylaw perspective?
That's an interesting question. I would suggest adding wording that gets a certification or something from the professional company, professional pest control company, that it's been done.
Could I just perhaps say to the satisfaction of town staff?
I'm okay with it if we want to add that condition in, just so that we're able to have, actually uphold what we put in for the condition. Yep.
Yeah, how would you add the wording on? I'm just trying to figure that one.
Like what you said, to the satisfaction of the town.
Satisfaction of town staff.
Have you seen this condition before?
No, I have not.
Okay, so the mover and seconder agree to it?
Yeah, I agree.
So sorry to interrupt you guys. So do they need to produce a certificate that this work has been done regarding the rodents? How is that going to be proven?
I guess the applicant will liaison with town staff, and, it's up to town staff to assess whether that condition has been met or not.
Okay,
Okay, perfect.
I'm in agreement. Fine.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Opposed, if any. So the application was approved. It's subject to a 20-day appeal period before it becomes final and binding. Thank you. And our final application for the evening is A0925 for 30 Niagara Street. Dahara?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so the purpose of this application is to facilitate the construction of an 8-story apartment building. The variances requested are to permit a maximum height of 27.5 meters, whereas a maximum height of 26 meters is permitted. To permit a minimum width of a landscape strip abutting westerly side lot line of 4 meters, whereas 9 meters is required. To permit a residential parking rate of 1 parking space per unit plus 0.25 visitor parking spaces per unit, whereas 1.25 spaces per dwelling unit plus 0.25 visitor parking spaces per unit is required. To permit a density of 170 units per hectare, whereas a maximum net residential density is 120 units per hectare. And to permit a yard encroachment of a canopy of 1.2 meters into the front yard, whereas canopies may project into any front yard of not more than 1 meter. This is an image of the site plan, which was circulated along with the notice of hearing. And this is an aerial image of the neighborhood for context. These are the current conditions on site. And this is an image of what is proposed. These are the agencies that have provided comments, and I will summarize those comments for you now. Planning staff have no objections to the minor variances proposed by the applicant. Planning staff have reviewed the application under Section 45 of the Planning Act and are of the opinion that the minor variances meet the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, are appropriate for the development of the lands, and are minor in nature. NPCA provided the following comments and conditions. There is an NPCA regulated feature that abuts and traverses along the northern lot line in an east to west orientation. This feature retains a 15-meter regulation distance within which development is controlled by conservation authorities through O Regulation 4124, Section 28.1 development permits. The proposed landscaping area and the parking lot are within the regulation distance of the aforementioned watercourse. The NPCA recommends the application be offered concurrence provided the following conditions are met. NPCA requests the following conditions to be applied to the consent. Number one, our officers must be supplied with a site plan showing the regulation distance of all NPCA regulated features at the address. The associated buffer of all NPCA features must also be shown, and a setback from development must also be added. Number two, the applicants will retain approximate NPCA Section 28.1 development permits for the works proposed within the 15-meter regulatory distance of the watercourse. The scope of a permit, if required, shall be determined in accordance with the revised site plan mentioned above. Number three, the applicants must produce an ESC plan to the satisfaction of the NPCA. This plan must show appropriate ESC measures to prevent sediment entrance into the northern watercourse. Alternatively, the NPCA would request an addendum to the completed site plan which depicts and details ESC measures to be emplaced at the address. A note should be added to either document that ESC measures will be erected before construction and will remain in place until all disturbed areas have been stabilized. Please note that the NPCA may offer more extensive comments, revisions, or requirements once this application has progressed to site plan control. Public Works staff and the region have no comments or conditions. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Is the applicant or agent for this come forward and just give your name and I guess firm address for the record, please?
My name is Chloe Andre. I'm the agent for the file, AJ Clark & Associates, 25 Main Street West, Hamilton, Suite 300.
Okay, thanks. Any questions or comments to add in regards to what's been presented so far?
No, we've reviewed all the comments and they're fully supportive, and we are fully supportive of the conditions that have been requested, and we're here and available to answer any questions from the committee and those in attendance tonight.
Okay, thanks. Is there anyone in the committee has, go ahead, Dylan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess just looking at the variances requested, the one that I have, I guess, problems with is the reduction of parking. Perhaps we could hear further from the applicant as to the rationale. In reading the parking report, I can understand, the highlighting of transit, I say that in quotes, within Grimsby, GO and VIA and things like that. However, that transit is not particularly well serviced to Grimsby, and I know that we always want to look future facing, but at the present time, it's not. I think too, we need to face the fact that Grimsby is very much a commuter city. And so given the various types of units, it's regardless of what someone may be permitted, there are going to be situations where, there may be two people living in a unit and both will need cars in order to go to work elsewhere outside of town. So, I would love to be able to have get to the point where parking spaces are not needed and are vacant, and hopefully they could be repurposed in future. But given the fact that parking is at a premium, and given that area where it's going to be built, there's not a lot of alternatives except perhaps to be parking in, commercial properties or, filling up streets or even parking in other apartment building spaces. So right now, as it stands, that's the one variance that I can't support. Also, the comparisons to some of the other regions around us, I think are good to note. However, I think you're comparing apples and oranges when you're talking about places like Mississauga and Burlington and Vaughan and places like that, where sort of mass transit is much more developed, established, and is interconnected with other forms of transit. So that's sort of my position right now, given that one variance. And if the agent would like to make any comments to address any of my concerns or perhaps swayed me on this one, they're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So at first, I want to address that we are only seeking a variance to the residential parking. We are still proposing all the visitor parking on site be supported for the development. So that is 23 parking spaces for the visitors and 90 parking spaces for the residential development, which is 1 parking space per unit. So as alluded to within the parking study, there was a study done where BA Group, the transportation consultants in this case, looked at the actual parking that is on site and what is being used within existing apartment buildings within Grimsby, and they found that the actual overnight demand on site was 0.61 to 0.8 parking spaces per unit. So this is what shows that some of these parking spaces, there is actually an excess of parking on some of these lands. So we don't want to provide excess parking. We want to provide adequate parking for the residents. There is an additional cost associated with that, and there are policies in the OP that speak to these transportation measures to encourage people to use alternative forms of transportation like transit. We are providing bicycle parking on site for these residents. The site will also be connected to the existing sidewalk network. We're in an intensification area right adjacent, and this is a designated high-density site. So we are seeking that reduction, which has been permitted across Grimsby to date. And the parking study also indicated that there is actually trends downward in parking that they have seen, and the demand is actually trending downwards. So we're hoping that this approval will solidify and be in accordance with those demands in the future and what we're seeing to date.
Okay, thanks. Dylan, any further comment on that one? Yeah, we're actually going to get at the public after the committee. I just wonder about the choice of surrogate sites, as Dylan mentioned.
Sorry, what was that?
The surrogate sites, like Mississauga and Vaughan, why wouldn't they have chosen something that's a little more, comparable to the character of Grimsby?
Yeah, I think the policies are already in place in these areas for reduced parking measures. So they wanted to note that these are what some municipalities are doing to encourage alternate forms of transportation. And it also supports development because there is significant costs with providing this parking, especially in cases like this for apartment buildings where it is provided underground.
Okay, thanks. Actually, I just had a quick question to planning. Can you just tell us about the previous proposal there? I just wonder about the history of this property. 313, I think the site-specific was.
I believe there's no reduction in parking requirement for the previously approved site plan for the site.
Yeah, I just wondered what the actual concept was previously. Was it a retirement home or something?
The zoning amendment permitted an 8-story apartment building, which is what's being proposed.
Okay, thanks. And since I got you on the mic, a question, it was regarding the landscaping buffer that was set at 9 meters when they had that zoning bylaw amendment. What was the purpose of that?
The purpose of the 9-meter buffer, it was land based on the fortuitous design that was proposed at the time, which I believe included almost all of the site having underground parking. So not as much surface parking was being provided. So a significant amount of landscaped area was available on the west side of the building, adjacent to townhouse units where there are rear yards facing the parking lot. We feel that a reduced setback is more than appropriate. It exceeds our normal requirement. A wood privacy fence is being proposed along the common lot line, as well as a substantial amount of vegetation that's proposed to be planted along that corridor to provide the necessary screening of the parking lot to the rear yards of the townhouses.
Okay, thank you. Any other further questions from the committee for the applicant?
Through the chair, just maybe for Plain, does it matter if it's a residential condo building, like ownership versus a rental, in terms of the parking requirements, same? Because this one says residential condo building, so I'm assuming it's individually owned condominium units versus a purpose-built rental.
So through you, Mr. Chair, this is proposed as a purpose-built rental. Within the zoning bylaw, it's only classified as an apartment use, but the proposed, I guess, tenure of the building is it will be a purpose-built rental unit. So all renters will know, what they're agreeing to whenever they come into this building. So they'll have to make that choice as well.
Okay, I don't know if it makes a difference, but on here, it's shown as a residential condo building, like in all the plans they circulated. So I don't know if that's important or not, but it does say that on here that it's a condo building. Maybe that was the original intent, because I understand it was originally a 77-unit building approved for the site. Same height, just different sizes, I'm assuming. Is that correct, Walter? Oh.
Thank you. You're wondering why I was staring at you. Thank you. The application is for a rental. It's my understanding that it's a purpose-built rental, and that's how we're reviewing it. There is no difference in parking standards in our standard zoning bylaw requirement based on tenure. If at some point in the future there's a desire to convert it to condominium and ownership tenure, then there would have to be a separate application made to do that. That would have to be approved by council. Thanks.
Any other further questions from the committee? Yeah, Fabia, go ahead.
I have a question. Sorry, I couldn't tell if my hand was raised or not. Through the chair, this is a comment about the parking. I had questioned the parking as well, and I'm addressing Dylan and what he raised were very good points. But when I think back to the properties I've owned in Grimsby, my rental unit, my townhouse has one parking spot per unit, and it also has guest parking. And my condo I owned also was the same. So in other words, these properties have been around a long time. I bought one in 2003. So it made me feel better about the one unit, one parking situation. I think that's the average. And since I've lived in Grimsby, the parking has gotten worse, but that's just a sign of the times. I think what this building does offer, which I'm really happy about, is rental opportunities. There really isn't a large rental opportunity for anybody that needs rental property. I see them all the time looking for rental properties, and I like the look of the building. I think it blends into the area that is, Slessor has been there for years, and then the townhouses are in that area. So, you know, I know the parking seems minimal, but I think it's very standard, and I certainly have encountered this type of parking. So I just wanted to add that I think for what the parking seems to be uncomfortable, the numbers, I think that the units that are being now going to be rental units, I think that's going to be good for Grimsby. So I'm in favor of this project. Just wanted to let you know.
Yep. Planning?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to clarify Member Bailey's comment about surrogate sites. The surrogate sites that were used in this study were 1 Slessor Boulevard and 3 Slessor Boulevard, which are in the same neighborhood, 30 Robinson Street North, and 2 Rossmore Avenue, which are all in Grimsby.
Okay, thanks. I had one other question. It was about, I've lost it. It'll come back to me. Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you. We'll open the floor to the public. Anyone wishes to have questions or comments regarding this, please come to the podium and give your name and address for the record, please. Yep. Yep.
Hi, my name's John Partridge. I live on 19 Niagara Street. And already now, there's parking on Niagara Street from Slessors. So I'd like to make a proposal that there be no parking on Niagara Street.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
No.
Okay.
It's about parking.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to come? Yep, go ahead.
Hi, Jake Salima, my wife Judy. I guess about 12 years ago we...
Sorry, I just get your address for the record.
84 Livingston.
Okay, thank you.
We severed the land where there's a 2-story building just beside our driveway. I'd also like to, first of all, say thank you to the town of Grimsby for not notifying us of any meetings before that building started digging ground. Yeah.
Okay.
To the JEC development?
Two Slessor.
No. Oh, maybe it is.
The one beside the parking lot?
Anyways, we received this notice. We did not receive that until they started digging.
Notice, yeah, just if I may, notices aren't sent out when construction begins. Notices are sent out for planning applications like minor variances, zoning amendments.
Anyways, that's turned over dirt now. But what we would have actually liked to have spoken to at that point was several variances from the exterior of the building to our property line. If any of you have driven down our driveway or driven there, you will see it seems like it's kind of ghetto-y now. It's obviously a little closer than it was supposed to be permitted. Anyways, that's water under the bridge. What I would like is, because everybody got these notices, but they are completely useless. I would love if you could put this drawing up and expand it so that we can see it, because we've got some issues with the positioning of the building. It's very close to Niagara Street. And you're changing, again, a variance on that. Again, it's going to be pushed closer to our building and our property line. The parking is definitely an issue. If any of you from staff have driven down Niagara Street, and I'm sure you have, and we've heard and seen by law ticketing people, and I don't understand how they can ticket people because there's no signage. But anyways, I guess it's online. It's a different beast. But parking on that street, you go down that street any time of day, and it's virtually full, especially at 5 o'clock. And overnight.
Is it construction workers?
No. And I know some of the people that they are parking from the two old Slessor buildings. I don't know the addresses of them, but it is from 1 and 3, I believe, yeah. Anyways, I know some of the people that we know there. My wife has been there for 60 years, so we know a lot of people in Slessors. We lived in there. So again, it's the proximity to Niagara Street. It's a very large lot. We can't see why they need to have a variance to encroach closer to Niagara when it's such a large lot that it couldn't go back a little bit. All right, especially now that we are, we've attended a number of meetings here over the years, and one of the issues has always been shadow studies that you perform. I challenge you to go down and drive around Harvey's and see some of the condos down there. I'm sure their shadow studies, they're not happy about that. We're not happy about the building right beside us either, so we're voicing our concerns about that. The parking is definitely an issue. I understand that the railway line back there, I'm not suggesting that they build back there. Nobody wants that, especially people that are going to rent. I think we would like to have some kind of confirmation, because it is condos in the stated literature, that it cannot be turned into condos, because we have a 15-unit building there. We have recently approached the town of Grimsby about converting to condos, turned down, because there's a number of sites that are already going to be built. Century condos, this one, the old house across from Monk's Chocolate is apparently condos as well. We got 15 units. We got turned down. We don't understand how. Okay, so there's a couple of other points, but I'm going to actually defer to the representative to try and alleviate our concerns. We're not against development. That's why we sold. All right, but it's just the encroaching idea and parking as well. I'm happy to hear from the representative.
Okay, thanks. I can't answer most of those questions with the applicant, but as in terms of the actual documents, if you actually go online to the Town of Grimsby website, they have everything posted there. I know maybe a day late and $1 short, but the full architectural plans are posted there. So, yeah, basically anything they supplied in support of the minor variance is posted with our agenda. Okay, you want to address some of the questions or comments of the delegate?
I'll address, I guess, the front yard and the setback relative to the positioning of the building. So I would like to clarify that we are meeting the front yard requirements. So there is no variance requested for us to be closer to the Niagara Street frontage than is already permitted. So we are actually set back 3 meters, which is the minimum. So this is consistent with the zoning bylaw. And we are, along the frontage, you may have seen, we are requesting a variance for the canopy, which overhangs and is a design feature, and it's positive for residents as they're walking outside. They'll be slightly sheltered from the rain and from some elements. I apologize. I know you had also mentioned the parking. I think I spoke to that previously. If there's like a specific item that I missed in your address.
Yeah, I think one of the concerns was the parking on Niagara Street, which is really beyond the scope of the application. That's a town issue and not necessarily. It could be tied to the actual parking on site, but in terms of what happens on the street, that's beyond the scope of the application. Any other questions or comments from the audience? Okay, come up and give your name and address at the podium, please.
Hi, my name is Mandy Stevens. I'm on 8 Glenwood. I know one of the councilors had spoken about the parking. I'm going to touch on it again. We on Glenwood Avenue are cross streets with Niagara. We have 16 houses on Glenwood Avenue. There's 14 houses on Niagara Street right now. It is a very small community. We have no sidewalks even. There is some street parking, which has been taken up over the years by not enough parking at 1 Slessor Boulevard and 3 Slessor Boulevard. They are taking up the street parking that is right now available on Glenwood and Niagara every night, as well as a few years ago, they widened Livingston, and the townhouses at 89 Livingston across the street, across Livingston, they also park on Glenwood Avenue every night. So parking is a huge issue. Reducing the number from 1.25, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's still 23 parking spots that are really important in this day and age. Whether you're renting or buying, you said you're all for rentals, which is lovely, it's great, rentals are needed. Affordable rentals are needed, which they likely will not be. They're going to be expensive, they're going to be requiring 2 incomes likely to afford them, which is going to require likely 2 cars at a minimum of each unit. I was under the impression that it was a 5-story 77, and then I was under the impression it was an 8-story 77 unit. And I don't know when it got changed to like 90 or 95 units. Does anybody know that? Or is it not approved yet and it's just,
Yeah, planning staff.
it's in planning from the new,
You just want to speak
because
to
I know
it?
it just got sold again, correct? Recently? Yeah. So now it's gone from 77 to 90 or 94.
I can answer that.
Okay.
Can I answer the? Okay, so first there was an application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw for this block, and there was a subdivision to divide the land into two blocks and extend Niagara Street to connect to Slessor Boulevard. The original proposal with the zoning amendment was for an 8-story building and with the official plan amendment. So that's why the planning regulations were changed on the site to permit an 8-story building, which I think matches the Slessor apartment at 1 Slessor. Subsequent to that, there was a site plan application that was submitted for a 5-story building by the owner, and that was abandoned, and the lot was sold to the current owners. The current owners are proposing an 8-story building, and they've submitted a site plan application, which requires the minor variances that are before us tonight.
More units?
Yes.
Okay, so that's my bit on parking. I think parking is really important, and it's not going to get any better anytime soon. So I would propose that they deny the variance to reduce the number of parking spots. Is there any way that you could go underground?
Yeah, I'll take that comment down, and once I get a big list, then I'll have the applicant address.
And I was just wondering when the traffic study was done. Was it done when it was proposed at 77 units? And was it done with the 14 townhomes?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, the submission now included a parking study. The transportation impact analysis was done when the zoning amendment was being done, and there was a debate as to whether or not Niagara Street should be connected and become a through street. So it was concluded that it should be, and that the traffic impacts weren't significant enough to warrant not connecting the street.
Do you know if any cities like Beamsville or Welland or Lincoln or Smithville were included when they did the parking lot or the parking spot study? Aga and Vaughan and some buildings in Grimsby.
Like I mentioned earlier, the surrogate sites that were used were 1 Slessor, 3 Slessor. There was one on Robinson Street and one on Rossmore, yeah, in Grimsby.
Big cities as well? Was there big cities as well?
Maybe the applicant can summarize
if
the
you can-
analysis that was
If you
done.
can just sort
that
of
was
give
included in
us
the
all your
study.
questions and comments, and we can just do it all at once.
Okay. The only other thing I wanted to note, well, I have 2 more things. One, regarding the parking, the new 14 townhomes on Slessor, I guess it's the new number 2 Slessor, they're not occupied yet. So they're going to be like, that's 14 homes right there. Probably 28 cars. They have 1 parking spot per person as well, with 0.25 visitors. That's all I'll go into with parking. We're all opposed to the parking spots. The other thing I want to request is when they did start building the 2 Slessor, we also got infested with rats. I've lived there for 17 years. I have never had rats, and we were infested the last 2 summers. It's crazy. I finished the barbecue. I turned the barbecue off. 2 minutes later, I went to close the lid. I had 5 rats in my barbecue, and I haven't used it since. So I would also love to propose, like, some way of professional pest control for any residents within however many meters you want to deem necessary. If they request kind of professional pest control, that the owner comply and pay for it. Is that possible?
Okay, I'll note that concern, and then,
Okay.
like I say, we'll get the applicant to address once a whole bunch of people have spoken, so.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the audience want to comment? Yeah.
Sorry, again, my point is going to be about the lovely map. I'm not sure, because I couldn't read it, is there handicap parking in your planning? And if so, how many? The frontage, again, what I'd be interested in seeing is like checking with some other existing buildings in Grimsby specifically, how far set back they are from the road, especially Slessor 1 and 3. They're a long distance from the road to the front door. Our building is set back so far off of Livingston. We have a very large, and I've never measured it, but I'm going to guess it's about 80 by 80. Pretty large setback from Livingston. And we can't even put one accessory dwelling unit on it. And we're multi-residential. I don't get that. So you got somebody here that wants to go 90 units, decrease their parking, and we can't do something like put a small accessory dwelling unit in for a rental unit. So I just don't see how everything works. I know there's always, moving ahead and so on and so forth, but I just don't understand. And there's going to be needs for people handicap parking, right? It doesn't matter whether they're rentals or condos. But if they're able to build and then within 2 to 5 years and they say, hey, we want to go to the town of Grimsby, we want condos, how is that going to be permitted? And you quickly forget these meetings where you're saying, oh, no, even though it's in our literature, it's condos, it's apartment buildings and they're rentals. Now you're going to, potentially say, oh yeah, 90, go ahead, condos, 500,000-600,000 a piece. And nobody knows, maybe it won't happen, but it could. Anyway, that's it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Maybe I just planning to address a couple of those with some historical context in terms of the different setbacks on the older buildings.
I don't know how to address that. The older buildings were built where they were, to whatever standards were around at the time, which would 60s, 50s. Not sure when they were built, 70s. 1 Slessor Boulevard is fairly close to the right-of-way. Again, the variance that's requested here isn't for the building itself. The building meets the setback requirement that's in the zoning bylaw. The only relief that's being requested is that the canopy is being allowed to extend a little bit further, 0.2 meters, which is really minor and perceivable. Was the other question?
Actually, that was it. The other question I had.
Accessible parking spaces.
Oh, yes. I was going to say, they meet the.
4 proposed on the surface and 2 in the underground parking area. So, which, and type A and both type A and type B parking spaces that meet the requirements of the AOD standards, which our zoning bylaw was recently updated to align with. So the development will have to meet minimum accessibility requirements and fire requirements and so on. So.
Okay, thanks. I think one of the delegates mentioned underground parking, and there is underground parking in the proposed site plan, correct?
Yes, the underground parking that's proposed is within the boundaries of the foundation of the building.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak? So please give your name and address for the record, please.
Not the most efficient way, but Frank Bodo, 5 Glenwood. I guess I'll put a little bit of history on this, since the gentleman there did as well. There's a condos, I don't know what you want to call them, behind my place. They were built in 1988. They were supposed to be 2 stories high. Most people here probably know that what I'm talking about. 5 Niagara, 6 Niagara. It's basically 3.5 stories if you take into account the underground parking is half above grade. Anyway, so the history goes back for a while. I wanted to ask Mr. Basic.
Whatever you like.
No, seriously, what is it?
Basic.
Okay.
Basic.
I was going to say Basic, which is the way it should be, yeah. Okay. Was the original, the 30, yeah, the building, was it on the same like exact spot on the, or was it in a different spot? The 8-story, like, has it been moved at all?
The original with the zoning amendment application?
No, in terms of on the property itself.
That's what I'm asking. When the zoning application was submitted originally?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the same location. So the setback from the westerly lot line is the same as it is now. I think it's 30 meters or something like that.
And also from Niagara Street, like, what I'm getting at is.
It was also close to Niagara Street. Yeah.
Okay, but, because what I'm getting at is.
That's why the setback
there was
was
a shade
established at
study
3
done.
meters.
And I'm bringing this up because, I mean, I could care less, but the people who live in the townhomes there, they might be concerned.
Yeah,
If the shade study would still apply, because if it's not in the same spot and it's going to be 1.5 meters higher, I don't know if that's enough to affect what the results were from that.
Yeah. Just if you don't mind us just going along so I don't forget what the questions are. That's why the building's way at the east end of the site, so it's next to the other apartment building and not next to the townhouses. So it's really far away so that the shade impact is minimized.
Just if I could just pop in for a second, I actually took a map and I modeled the building just generally, and I looked at the impact on the townhouses, and there's some in the morning for maybe an hour, a little bit, depending on the season, but I didn't find there was much impact on those townhouses.
I just wanted to clarify that, like, I didn't, because I thought I remembered that the building was further back. That's why I asked. As far as the parking goes, I would suggest if you're going to let them have the extra units, that you don't adjust the parking. I think that would be a fair compromise. As soon as they put Niagara Street in, it started getting populated with cars parking overnight. Like, it happened right away. And, if you use the studies that were used for, well, I forget what the term were, surrogate studies or whatever, I mean, like, there's insufficient parking at 1 and probably 3 Slessor already. Like, that, I don't know if that's a good thing to use, because they're parking, like, on Niagara, they're parking in the plaza. So that's already, you're using a flawed example, I would argue. I guess that's the main points I wanted to bring up.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to make comments or questions regarding the application? If the applicant want to come back. Yeah, one more go.
The other variance that I really think should be denied is to permit the minimum width of a landscape strip abutting on the westernly side of the lot line, reducing it to 4 meters from 9. I don't know if you guys can get up a Google Street view of maybe like 23 Niagara and turn it to look at these backyards, but the townhouses, their backyards are like, no word of lie, like probably 8 feet. And this is directly behind their backyard that you're trying to reduce that landscape strip from 9 meters. It's probably the worst spot that could have been requested. So I don't live there. It's not going to really affect me, but I can't believe nobody is here from there. But that's the other one. Their backyards are tiny. It is a deck, and wherever the property line is, I know they said they were going to put a privacy fence up, but still that 9 meters was probably proposed in Grimsby for a reason, because it's a town, not a city, and it should be kept, in my opinion. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the audience have a question or comment? Yep, go ahead.
I just have a question for the applicant. If there is a possibility of, again, looking at their parking going down the west side of those townhomes there, if there was a possibility, and I can't read how many parking slips there are there, but if there's a possibility of just across Niagara Street, but in front of the building, putting the parking there. If it's a possibility to consider as far as the town, I mean, I'm sure, you know, it's, again, it's the whole idea of pushing the building back a little bit. It's just as Slessor, the 8-story, is pushed quite a ways back, a lot closer to the tracks. We're not talking about a huge amount, but instead of pushing it as far as we can forward, putting the parking along the front all the way along Niagara Street, or it's some of the parking.
Yeah, planning, I think, isn't there something in the zoning bylaw that says parking is not permitted in front of the building?
Yeah, parking in the front of the building is not desirable. Also, the setback from the CN right-of-way is set. CN required a setback of 30 meters from the CN right-of-way as a safety feature. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions or comments from the audience? Yep. Yep.
I just wondered whether there's going to be any facilities for the kids that's going to be in that apartment building. Is there a type park or anything? I didn't see it any.
Yeah, maybe planning can comment on that. Is there a parkland requirement for the development, or?
Parkland will be required to be paid in lieu of parkland dedication, so there will be no public parkland dedicated. There may be opportunities to provide some amenities for children or young people on the site, but it's not something that we required through the review.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments from the audience? If not, could the applicant come and just, oh, I thought I had it.
Yeah. So if like the sidewalk thing, does that usually, is that something that they would be required to put in?
Yeah, I'll have planning comment on that one.
Thank you. A sidewalk is proposed along the frontage of the site, connecting to the existing sidewalk on Slessor Boulevard.
Okay.
Yeah.
The existing sidewalk is on the east side of Slessor. So how does that connect up? I mean, or you mean it's just going to come out? Is it north side?
The proposal is to make a connection.
Okay, north side or south side?
Sidewalk is proposed along the frontage of this lot, extending east to Slessor Boulevard and connecting to the existing sidewalk.
Okay, thanks. Maybe the agent wants to come up and address some of the further concerns. I know we heard some of them again.
Okay, so I know some of these have already, I guess, been addressed, but we are providing all the required parking as per the AOD requirements for the visitor parking. this will be a purpose-built rental unit, and we are proposing affordable rental units with this application. 10% of the units within this building will be affordable rental units. We've also addressed kind of the rear yard and the positioning of this building. So as mentioned, we are abutting CN to the rear, so that is limiting how far we can push the building to the back for safety, and in accordance with their requirements. The proposed landscaping strip that, although it is a reduction from the current 9 meters, as staff have indicated, this is still in abundance of the requirements as of right within the zoning bylaw, but we are seeking an amendment to that site-specific 313. And then the parking as it relates to Niagara Street and Slessor, the units that are, I guess, in construction are not occupied yet, so the people that are parking on the street are not those that are in the building that are already in construction. There's nobody living at these properties, and when they are occupied, they will have their own parking provided on site, both for the residents and for the business, or the visitors, sorry. And then I think the remainder of items, the sidewalks will be provided on site, and it's shown within the landscaping plan. So we're providing some trees, buffering along both the Ontario Street frontage and adjacent to the rear yards. So there is an existing fence line on the property of those townhouses. We are also providing our own fencing to buffer and screen from the parking that will be provided on our site as well. And I think I've hit everything.
Yeah, I think there was kind of a question. Not sure if it was really a question, more of a comment, just about the density versus the parking. You know, they were kind of wondering if, there's, tip the scale one way or another.
Yeah, I guess the proposed parking supply has been provided to achieve the affordability for this building. So there is limited, I guess, opportunity to increase that parking on site. There is significant costs associated with providing that parking underground and increasing the numbers. And the reports and the studies that were prepared in support of this application and what is in front of you of 90 units in an 8-story building, what was ultimately supportive of the proposed supply.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I just want to make a comment. It was just regarding the, I guess, the landscaping buffer that one of the delegates mentioned, and I think it's 4 meters that you want, correct? Yeah, I looked at Mississauga, and I looked at the zoning bylaw, found, what zoning category that size of building would have been, and, read their rules, and it said it would basically require a 7.5 meter setback. And as the delegate mentioned, those semis or the townhouses, they do have very small yards. So I feel that really increases the sensitivity of how close that parking lot comes to their property line, because they have if they had a long yard, then I think I would be fine with that. But at 4 meters, I have to admit, I'm not comfortable with that one. So any other further comments from the committee or questions?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm looking at your own parking study in the addenda, page 200 and something. And I'm looking at the ratios of the other buildings. I know there's been some concerns about the inventory, but I actually don't find the ratio proposed for the subject that bad. And the reason is, I'm just taking it right off their own study. So 2 Rossmore has 32 units, 39 spaces provided, 1.21 ratio overall, and that's handicap, or don't call them handicap, they're accessible now. 30 Robinson, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is 54 units, 46 spaces provided, that's 0.85 total. 1 Slessor is 106 units, 120 spaces provided, or 1.13. And 3 Slessor is 62 units and 45 spaces provided. That's probably the problem building, to be honest. I think they're all bachelor units or something, 0.73. But if you add all 5 buildings up, or 4, I get 254 units and 250 spaces. So basically a 1-to-1. You're providing 90 units or 118 spaces total, including the accessible units, the visitor, 23 visitors is a lot, and 90 for the apartment unit. So 118 for 90 is 1.31. I actually find that's a better ratio overall than those 5 buildings or 4 buildings combined. So I know there's been some concerns about it. I think if it's an enforcement issue on Niagara Street, then they should enforce it. But I don't think that ratio's, I mean, we've had requests here to go below 1, and that's where I have a problem. But this is actually 1.31 overall. So it's not out of line with the neighborhood, in my opinion. Just looking at the stat, purely at the numbers, okay, not any other parking study. I mean, those were the 5 buildings that they served, but just out of curiosity, I'm not sure why they're quoting Elm Street. Did you guys, Paris, copy another parking study from another development? Because they do quote the development as being Elm Street, not the subject address. But anyways, I'm sure the study is the study from those buildings. So, and the usability, or the, what do they call it? The, they have a name for it. Sorry, bear with me here. I guess the usability of the parking spaces never reaches 1 to 0. Like, it's always below that. So unless they're lying or doing it on a holiday when everybody's away, I don't know, but it doesn't seem to be at full occupancy based on those studies. So based on the facts and the studies provided, the professional parking, I can't really say I have a problem with that parking reduction for purpose-built rental. And again, it was mentioned if they apply, it doesn't matter what tenure, but they do require an application to the city if they ever want to flip to condos. So there would be a rezoning required to kind of alleviate your concern about flipping to condo. You were denied, and they would have the same issue. They come in as rental, they stay rental until they go back. If they try, they'd have to go back through council to get that approved. So to the point of the buffer, I think 20 feet, 4 meters is still quite a bit, and I'd feel maybe differently if the entire townhouse row came up here and started complaining about it, but nobody's here. So I get your concern, but you're kind of projecting that concern for those neighbors. But if they were concerned, they should be here, alleviate. Okay. Right. 4 meters is 12. Sorry, 12, 15 feet. But with a privacy fence and landscaping. So they still have to go through site plan, I believe, Walter, to talk about the density of the landscaping required and the height of the fence and all that, and lighting and things like that. So I can't say I really have problems with it. We do need affordable rental units in town. The density, the overall massing of the building isn't changing. I can't say overall I have a problem with this request.
I just wanted to, the chair made a reference to zoning requirement in the city of Mississauga of 7.5 meters. I'm not sure what that's for, but our standard requirement for a parking lot to a residential zone is 4.5 meters.
Yeah, it was actually based on the minimum side yard, and then 6, and then for every so many stories, you have to increase it by 1.5 meters. But I know we're apples and oranges here.
Yeah, that's right. We're talking about a parking lot and not a building. So the setback you were referring to was for a building, which has overlook impacts, and the setback that we're talking about here is to a parking lot. So our standard requirement is, I just want to let you guys know, our standard requirement is 4.5 meters. But in this case, the way the parking lot was designed originally, the reason we have 9 on the site was because that's what was proposed, not because that's what our standard was. Our standard was 4.5. That's all I wanted to point out.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that, the 7.5 was actually where the edge of the parking lot could be relative to the property line. Just since I got you on, do you know the rough density of I guess it's number 1, the building to the east?
144 units per hectare within the previous site specific.
Sorry, I'm regarding the property that's directly to the east, not the subject property. Two, yeah. 182 units. I'm not sure the address of that one.
Are you referring to 1 Slessor Boulevard or 2 Slessor Boulevard?
I don't know the exact number. It's the property
The old,
east.
the old
Yeah.
apartment building or
Yes,
the new
the old
stacked townhouses?
the old apartment building.
The old 8-story building? Okay. I don't know. What the
I
density is.
calculate. I think it was around 200 something per
200 units per
hectare. Yeah.
Okay.
So this proposal is well under that. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Sorry. Yeah, if you can address the question about pest control. I have my opinion that you're not doing any demolition of existing buildings, but maybe you could address it.
That's correct. The subject lands are currently vacant, so there will be no demolition associated with this. But obviously, once we complete the site plan application, which is in process and is why kind of we're in front of you guys here today for these minor variances, we will be proceeding with construction.
Okay, thanks. Yep. So, sorry. What's that? Yeah. Yeah, actually, I have to come to that because they can't hear you online.
Wouldn't disturbing the ground bring up the rats? Not demolition. They live underground. When they put in the new 2 Slessor building, there was nothing there either. It was the disturbance of the ground. That's why I'm asking for pest control.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, you want to address that?
I guess through the construction management plan that we have submitted, it was not initially an ask of the city, but I guess we're subject to the conditions that are put forward here today.
Okay, thanks. Dan, you got
If I can speak to that, my thoughts on the pest control for this one is it, whose fault is it? Is it the current construction that's going on? Should they be responsible? Should you take the burden on for that? Are you responsible because you're next? There seems to already be a problem there. I wouldn't support any conditions imposed on this building or this construction as far as pest control.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, sorry, you got one, yeah, okay, one last, yeah.
Well, first thing with the pest control, it's not, there's no construction. It's when they disturb the natural landscape, that's when all the pests will run away. So that's when it's going to be an issue, is when it gets disturbed, to dig it up and, to put the foundation and all that kind of stuff. No, somebody had said earlier that somebody said something about a trade-off, and that wasn't exactly what I had said. I had said that I think if they wanted to get, a trade-off might be to get the 90 units, they keep the parking at the same ratio. That's what just to clarify.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any further comments or questions from the committee?
Through the chair.
Yeah, sorry, we have a question from one of the committee members. Go ahead, Fabia.
The construction on
Sorry, can you, please? Go ahead, Fabia.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm just, for the homeowners that are presenting regarding the rodent population, how many years has this been going on? And is it something that's been happening for the last few years, or it just started with the development on this property?
Yeah, go ahead, actually.
I've lived there since 2007. I have never seen a rat until the development at 2 Slessor, the 14 new stacked townhomes that were just built, started. And we got the rat control under control last summer by hiring a pest control company and putting poison everywhere. A neighborhood cat even died on our street because of somebody doing it improperly because it took over, but I've never seen a rat ever. It was definitely from the new construction. And now it's under control again, and I'm sure it's going to spiral again. So I'm asking one more time. I'm asking one more time. You can deny me again, but I'm going to ask again. It's actually quite important, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other further comments from the committee? Any questions?
No.
Yeah, Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to, I don't think anyone is here that can answer it, but I want to ask the question just in case someone is. The gentleman there brought up the point of no parking on Niagara Street. Do we know the process for that? That's not in planning's control, or is it?
That would be up to council. Council would have to pass a bylaw. It's a public road. And unless there's no parking bylaw passed, identifying where parking is permitted, where it's not permitted, then it's not something that the committee should consider. It's something that council has to consider through a bylaw.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none, do I have a motion on the application and the reasons therefore?
I'll make a motion on the application.
Okay, go ahead, Fabia.
I propose we accept minor variance A09-2530 Niagara Street. Variances requested to permit a maximum height of 7.5 meters, whereas a maximum height of 26 meters is required as per section 7.2.1, table 11 of the zoning bylaw, to permit a minimum width of a landscaping strip abutting westerly side lot line of 4.0 meters, whereas 9.0 meters is required as per site-specific 3.13 of zoning bylaw 14-45, to permit a residential parking rate of 1.0 parking space per unit plus 0.25 visitor parking spaces per unit, whereas 1.25 spaces per dwelling unit plus 0.25 visitor parking spaces per unit is required as per section 5.1, table 3 of zoning bylaw 14-45 as amended, to permit a density of 170 units per hectare, whereas the maximum net residential density is 120 units per hectare, as per site-specific 313 of zoning bylaw 14-45 as amended, to permit a yard encroachment of a canopy of 1.2 meters into the front yard, whereas canopies may project into any front yard of not more than 1 meter as per section 4.9 of zoning bylaw 14-45 as amended.
And your reasons?
My reasons are I feel this project meets the 4 tests as I see. Most importantly to me, it will add much needed rental units to Grimsby, including affordable housing units. So
Okay, thanks. And
we approve this.
you approve or approve with conditions? The conditions that
no.
were, and
I
PCA?
don't have a copy of the conditions, so we'll
Okay.
have to approve with conditions. But
Okay.
I don't have a copy of them, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a seconder on that motion? Okay, Kevin. Any discussion on the motion further from the committee? All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Opposed, if any? That's carried. So the application was approved, subject to a 20-day appeal period before it becomes final and binding. Thank you. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is the election of the other business, the annual rotation of the chair and vice chair positions. Maybe we'll just take a 5-minute recess while people shuffle out. Thanks. Welcome back, everyone. Okay, so turning back to any other business, we're going to rotate the chair and vice chair for the next year. So first up would be the position of chair. 1 second, let me get the motion here.
I can make a motion.
Do we have a nomination?
I'll make a motion, resolve that Dan Collins be appointed as chair for the Committee of Adjustment for the period of 1 year, subject to his agreeing to that.
Okay, well, first we need to get a seconder on that one. Do we have a seconder? Okay, so Dylan.
If everybody votes in favor except me, does it pass?
Well, if we don't get anyone else, you get it claimed, but we'll vote on it anyway. Okay. Kevin. Any other nominations for the position of chair? Seeing none, resolved that, moved by Kevin, seconded by Dylan, resolved that Dan Collins be appointed as chair for the Committee of Adjustment for a period of 1 year. Any discussion on the motion?
Congratulations, Dan.
Okay.
We haven't voted yet.
Yeah.
We haven't voted yet.
Yeah.
I humbly accept.
We've got to vote first.
No, but you're the nomination.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Raise your hand. Opposed, if any. It's carried unanimously.
There we go.
Okay, next up would be the position of vice chair. Any nominations? I'd like to put a nomination forward. I'd like to nominate Dylan. Do we have a seconder on that one?
I'll second that.
Okay. Technically, I shouldn't be moving my own motions, but I think in the case of elections, it is accepted. Okay, moved by myself, Adam Watershead, and seconded by Fabia, resolved that Dylan Bailey be appointed as vice chair of the Committee of Adjustment for a period of 1 year. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye, raise your hand. Dylan, you accept?
I do, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, sorry. So, once again, let's vote. All those in favor say aye, raise your hand. Opposed, if any, that's carried. Congratulations, Dylan.
Thank you very much to the committee.
And there's no appeal period on that one.
Oh, okay. All right, good to know.
That being said.
If I may, thank you very much, Adam, for your year of service as
you.
chair. It's been wonderful. Very much so.
I appreciate it. It's a learning experience for sure, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. It's you've already had a taste, so okay. He's had a couple test runs. That being said, our business is adjourned, or concluded for tonight, and we're adjourned. The next meeting is April 15th, 2025. Thanks. Congratulations,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
Bye, Dylan. Bye, Fabia.
Take care.
Good night. See you in April.
Recording stopped.